Welcome to the Onyx Takeover, and today I'm speaking to Kyla Harris, who is an artist, visual artist and a filmmaker.
I am a mixed heritage femme person in my late 30s with kind of wildly buoyant curly hair today that is very dark. I have very dark eyes, a black dress.
And yeah, Kyla, hi.
Hi, Ashok.
Hi. Could you just give us a little flavor of the work that you do?
I think that there's a lot of flavor in my work. So I think it is usually centered around interdependence and how it takes both give and take in relationships to make work and be creative and exist in this world. My work is, I'd say, quite irreverent and tongue-in-cheek, and doesn't take itself too seriously, but deals with very serious subject matter.
I would actually add to that it's very powerful as well. The first question is, well, what we want to do with this whole series is talk about rest, aram, the whole idea of kind of rest within the sphere of creative practice, because our creative practice can become very, very kind of how would you put it? It can drive us to distraction, you know, especially when we're working to a goal or some kind of deadline or whatever. We can really kind of make ourselves ill in that process. And I wanted to talk about rest also because there are lots and lots of opportunities to talk about being an artist or being a disabled artist, but there's never a rest space so we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. And I want to kind of make that this rest space where we can just talk about our work and talk about whatever else we want to talk about as well, but in a relaxed way. So
I love that.
I'm going to kind of hand over to you. So yeah,
I love that. And I just want to say, and I think it might be a very Canadian earnestness that I have that can kind of show up even more so when I feel comfortable, and I want to say just how much I love you and respect you, and
me too.
I'm just really feeling at ease and also filled with kind of joy and sparkly funny feelings inside at being so excited about being reconnecting with you since that trip, because it's been a while, and yet I feel like such a strong connection with you and everyone that we went with, and has really given me a sense of community. And I think that like, even though I had it kind of before, I have a really strong community around me, and I think that flows into my practice in terms of rest as well, and just in terms of life and flowing in and out of work and rest, and when the two kind of aren't mutually exclusive, but when you are making work restfully. And I think the way I was talking to a friend last night, and I think it something clicked in my mind that I actually rest is the base of my life, and then from within that comes other distractions from rest.
Yeah.
And I think that I've learned that that's how I need to exist in this world. What's that?
I noticed you call yourself bedroom activist. That's your Twitter handle. So yeah,
yeah,
I kind of really connected with that idea of using the rest space as also an activist space as well. Or, you know, kind of the the bedroom doesn't necessarily have to be like how we define rest is always different. You know, everyone defines rest as in different ways, and especially kind of people who are different in some way for whatever reason, you know, they have to kind of find their own way of resting. Yes. You know, and sometimes rest is actually
and I'm going to challenge you a bit as well there in the use of the word different, because we're all different, you know, and I think sometimes different, if we describe ourselves, you and I say, as different, I think it reinforces the norm.
Yeah, I guess it
or
does. Yeah.
reinforces a norm.
Yeah.
And I think that actually everyone needs more rest, even the people that, I guess when you said different, I was thinking, well, what's different from us? And is different from us someone that's involved in like more of a capitalist 9-to-5 rat race? Is that what you mean as the norm, I suppose?
I think what I mean is people who have to live with it, with a difference, I guess. That's what I was kind of angling at when I say different. And it comes from this idea of being separated or segregated, or kind of like being treated differently.
Yeah.
And
right, yeah.
Coming from a point of view of kind of accepting that kind of that, but building that into something positive.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be kind of like, I don't want to be normalized. I don't want to be kind of like everyone else. I don't want to be part of the ubiquity of, you know, blandness.
100%.
I want to be the spot that sticks out, you know.
I suppose I see us all as spots that stick out. And then, but then maybe they don't stick out because, you know, there is a ubiquity there. But I think that there's, yeah, I suppose I think that what I do differently to the norm, in terms of if the norm was a 9-to-5 work to live, then I think I'd say that I fuck all of that.
Yeah.
And that I really do center rest within that, because, well, out of necessity, but also because I think that being, you and I have very anti-capitalist bodies, and there's no way that I certainly could even enter that race of capitalism.
The race isn't made for us, kind of thing. How do you develop creative ideas, and how does rest become part of that process?
I think I only work with people that value rest in the same way that I do, and have the same understanding of ableism. And I find it kind of almost impossible to work with people that aren't on the same page with me as that, because I think it feels abrasive. It's very much against all of the work that I've done to get to the place that I am now, which is a very measured space. And there are times where I do work incessantly and it's overwhelming. But often that's when I'm a cog in a bigger machine of a project, which is in a lot of like my TV work. But even within that, I still choose to work with people that I have an incredible relationship with. And I find that really necessary to my practice. And how do I come up with ideas? I don't know. How does anyone come up with ideas? I suppose it's just like being fed little drips of information and when those little drips become a full glass of water, you know it's ready to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you develop work in stages, like, and what's more important for you? And I guess I'm kind of talking about some of your visual work as well. If you can talk a little bit about your film as well, that you did with Film and Video Umbrella.
Yeah. So I made this film called It's Personal, and it was during the lockdown, and I thought kind of everything was over potentially in terms of like my career, but also in terms of like it felt like a very threatening time, very life-threatening, certainly at the beginning. And I didn't know I require 24-hour care, and I didn't know if my PAs were going to be able to come in and out of the house when we would go back to a phase that would be acceptable, and that would be safe for me. And so I thought my friend and I, my friend Lou McNamara, and I talked about just creating a small short video for this commission of Film and Video Umbrella, and we applied to do almost like a reality TV style challenge where she would come and learn my 24-hour care, but she'd have 7 days to do it, and then we'd spend a night alone together for the first time. So that developed out of a conversation. I guess the first stage of that was more a conversation between Lou and I, where we just kind of bounced ideas off of each other about what this 5-minute film could be about. And then we thought of the challenge, and then we applied for this commission. We got the commission. And then when Lou got here and we were filming, it was just her and I and my personal assistant that she was learning from, Loretta, who is in the film. And there was just so much content. There was just so much that we kind of opened up in this kind of version of mutual aid and interdependence and anti-ableist space of equality, that we're like, there's no way that this could be a 5-minute video. So then when we were editing it just became an entire kind of half an hour episode.
And it feels like there was actually more to say when I watched it. There was actually much more to say as well beyond that, because I think your experience at that period of time was evolving very fast, and evolving constantly, and there was kind of probably much more to say about that evolution of, you know, kind of where things were going and, you know, how things were changing for you and so on. Did that was an amazing kind of creative outlet for you at that time, but were you also working on other work as well at the same time? Or was that kind of a very focused point for you in terms of making the film?
That was a very focused point, like, for me, because it was at the beginning of lockdown. I had been working on a writing a TV series that was loosely based on an experience I had, and we'd been writing it for 2 years beforehand, and then then COVID hit and really changed everything and threw everything up in the air. So it felt like this kind of space of waiting, this kind of almost, I've called it now TV purgatory, where you don't know whether you're going to be commissioned or not. You've done all that you can, there's nothing left to do, and you've passed something on and it's in their hands. And so I was in this kind of TV purgatory, and with COVID it was kind of like, well, it could be 6 months, a year, infinite, it could die, it could be reborn again. Like, we don't know what is going to happen. And I think that there was like, that time made me very present, and I think that comes through quite a bit in the film as well, and it's personal, because it was a time that I was just focusing on that and felt very present in my work.
Yeah. When you write generally, especially for television or for whatever, do you tend to write lots of things simultaneously, and kind of like some ideas will be put away for a little while and then come back? Do your projects have to rest as well, or do you kind of constantly work through things and then let them rest?
Well, I work on something until I get it to a specific stage, and then it rests. Yeah, I think that I have a lot of like resting projects in me right now, like, and have done for years, that just feel like when they're ready to come out and find their home, I then kind of invoke the spirit of the artist within, and talk about them or propose them, because I love collaboration is really to me is essential to my work.
Yeah, it gives a lot of kind of time and space as well, especially when you have the right collaborator, in terms of sharing. It's almost like tag teaming sometimes, and sometimes it's about actually sharing the load. But yeah,
and I find that a really restful process, is that maybe that's why I've chosen to collaborate so much, and that collaboration to be the focus of my work, really, is because it does allow for rest on both people's end, for both people.
Yeah, and I find a lot of situations where I'm getting what's it called, anxiety, like almost you feel like you shouldn't be entering that space or occupying a certain space. What's the word?
Like imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome, yeah. And working with a collaborator kind of helps that kind of subside a little bit, because you can occupy a space together and feel so much stronger, especially when you have the right collaborator, because you can hold each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are you working on at the moment? It'd be intriguing if you could kind of give us a little bit of a
well, I'm working on a documentary in America at the moment. Actually, I shouldn't say I'm working on a documentary in America, because I'm not physically in America. It's an American documentary that I'm producing, but it's about a Black disabled artist and creative who is just unreal in her scope of what she does, and how and why she does what she does. So that's all that I can really say about that project.
As always, it's been amazing talking to you.
Oh, and you.
And I just wanted to ask if there was anything else you wanted to kind of discuss or talk about before we wrap things up.
I mean, I want to know all of your views on Aram.
Oh gosh.
And yeah.
Well, I've written a piece for Disability Arts Online, so a lot of it will be encapsulated in that. But I guess my real reason for choosing that word was just this general state of the situations I was getting myself into, like talks and this, that, and the other, and you start to resent that side of yourself because you're not allowed to talk about the things you want to talk about, which is your work and your practice, and kind of like the things that are important to you. And your disability can become part of you and be important to you, and the general situations that other artists are in, and campaigning for that and campaigning for access. But when there is no space to talk about yourself and your work, then it starts to get really stale really quickly. And I wanted to open up that space for artists so that we can literally, like, if we rule the world, what would our artwork look like if we didn't have to deal with access, if we didn't have to deal with kind of equality and all of this? What would our work look like if all of the bad things in history hadn't happened that affect us still? What would our work look like as creatives? And that was the question that I started. That was my starting point, I guess.
I suppose maybe it would look like everyone else's.
I don't know if it would. I think and this is where I go back to that word different again, that as a society we love difference, but that difference always has to be sensationalized in some way.
Or like branded.
Yeah, or seen as kind of superhuman. And I think that difference would still be there, but it would be part of a much bigger mix and a much more accepted mix. I use this analogy that we're embroidered around to create frames to frame what's important to wider society. So whatever's wider important to wider society goes in the middle, and we become a frame around the edge. And I don't want that. I want everything to kind of be much more mixed, so we get a chance to kind of become a sequin, or I'm still using textile analogies.
Yeah, but, great. Love it.
That when we look at kind of like the fabric of human society, that we shouldn't just be kind of footnotes or afternotes, or just kind of like embellishments, that we need to kind of be at the core of human achievement.
I think we are. I just don't think that we're recognized as that. I mean, we are, in a sense, ourselves artifacts. Like we are markers of survival, because we've survived often trauma, bullying, accidents, birth, all of these kind of things, and so we become this kind of living artifact. Yeah, I think to me it also makes me think about a lot about disclosure, and a lot about how, you know, non-disabled people are essentially just, they're not disabled yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I suppose because of that sentiment, I think that we are at the center of human achievement, not in an inspiration porn or sensationalizing kind of way, but in a way that nobody realizes, like nobody really does recognize how.
Well, it's been fantastic speaking to you.
And you.